Sponsored by Allergan and Ironwood.
KELA.
Welcome to KELA's Let's Talk About It. Discussions on a variety of topics of interest to Southwest Washington area listeners. Write down our listener call-in number and keep it handy. 330-5352. That's 330-KELA. You're invited to join in with your calls now at 330-KELA. Views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of the station, its management, or advertisers. Daily programs are recorded for playback, podcasts, and promotional purposes. And now, let's talk about it.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Let's Talk About It show, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno. The call-in number if you want to join and the conversation, share your thoughts, is 360-330-5352. My co-host this morning is Jonathan Meyer, Lewis County Prosecuting Attorney and good friend of the show. And Jonathan, if I'm right, you filled in for me a lot last year.
I did. It was a great opportunity. Love talking to folks, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And he's here to distill a little bit of the governor's decision to release inmates. So let's start with a little bit of background. Jonathan and I were talking a little bit about, and he'll correct me as I go through this quick little story. So about 5 or 6 days ago, there were 6 prisoners in Monroe Corrections Complex tested positive for COVID-19. So the inmates were quarantined, separated from the general population. Is that accurate so far?
Yes. The number's up to 8 now, but yes, you're right.
So in response to the positive test, about 100 plus inmates began protesting. And then according to a 153-page report released by DOC, the inmates, initially complied with the directions, but once inside the minimum security unit, pulled fire alarms, set off fire extinguishers, vandalized property, turned bunks over to use as barricades, wrapped towels around their faces, and stuffed magazines in their sweatshirts to protect against riot control measures, and said, quote unquote, they were going to take hostages if the staff entered the tier. So far, pretty accurate?
Yes, very accurate. Yeah, and it's, obviously that doesn't sound like a good response to a COVID concern. They did the right thing first and started to comply, and then they decided, hey, there's more of us than there are of you, so we're going to take matters in our own hands.
I mean, are these the kind of people we want to release from prison, people who are saying they're willing to take hostages?
Absolutely not. No, not in my opinion, at least.
I mean, so is there more to that story, or is that, there's got to be more to it.
Well, there's a lawsuit, and that's kind of what led to that report. So a DOC inmate sued the Department of Corrections, saying that the Department of Corrections was not taking sufficient steps to protect them from COVID. And in response, the Department of Corrections filed this report with the state Supreme Court. And in that report, it's amazing some of the steps that they have taken. And as I've said before, DOC has actually taken some steps further than we're taking out here in the community. Mm-hmm. And the amount of PPE they have is, I think, amazing given the number of facilities and the stuff that they're dealing with. They're checking staff every day when they come in. If there's any sign of any type of illness, the staff is sent home. So I believe DOC is doing 100% of everything they can do to protect the inmates from COVID, which is what they should be doing. I'm not saying that because they're in there, they should be getting COVID or being exposed. Not at all. But they are taking the steps that are necessary.
And if you're just tuning in to Let's Talk About It, AM1470, my special guest this morning and co-host, Lewis County Prosecuting Attorney Jonathan Meyer. If you want to join the conversation, give us your opinion, 360-330-5352. That's 330-5352. So the Washington Supreme Court late on Friday told Governor Inslee to protect the health of inmates in the state during this coronavirus outbreak, and gave the officials until Monday to detail steps on what should or could be taken. And while the plan could have been quarantine or separation from the general population, on Monday, the governor then decides we're going to go further than what the Supreme Court's asking. Let's just start releasing people. So could the governor have taken more reasonable steps? I mean, reasonable is, I would assume, is our opinion.
Right. And the governor started hinting at this in the press conference before the Supreme Court issued his ruling. And when he announced that he was going to have a press conference with the Secretary of the Department of Corrections in on the press conference, my first email was to the Prosecutors Association saying he's going to release prisoners, how many he's going to release. And we hadn't really talked about it up to that point, although we kind of figured that it would be coming. Fortunately, it didn't come in that press conference, but he certainly laid the groundwork for it. I know that just yesterday morning, representative from the governor's office told Representative Wilcox that it was only going to be about 350 inmates, and then we find out it's going to be up to 650. So, the question is, what other steps could have been taken? We have McNeil Island, which is not being used as a correctional facility. It's where they house the sexually violent predators, but that's in a separate unit. They still maintain the prison. They still have to maintain the buildings and everything there. So not ideal, but you have a lot of room there. You also have the Maple Lane facility, which the governor came down and toured, I think, 2-3 weeks ago. So that facility is also available. But Department of Corrections is also isolating and quarantining those that are either confirmed or suspected of having COVID already in the facility. And when you look at the numbers, DOC releases an average of 700 inmates per month. They have admitted that there's 1,200 violators, Department of Correction, community custody violators that have not been arrested. Mm-hmm. And now they're talking about releasing 650 inmates. So we're looking at roughly 2,000 people that are on the street that only 700 of which should be on the street because they were released. Now, also, what isn't factored in is that the number of DOC commitments are down because obviously the criminal justice system is somewhat hampered right now in what we can do. And so there's not as many people going to prison. So my estimation is that there's anywhere between 2,000, maybe 3,000 people that are not in prison that maybe should be. Right. And, that's concerning to me. So yes, I think that there are reasonable steps that can be taken other than release. But we also have room. We have 3,000 beds that should be taken up somewhere that aren't being taken up somewhere.
And if you're just tuning in to Let's Talk About, my special guest this morning, co-host Jonathan Meyer with the Lewis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. So we'll take some calls, and Jonathan, before I do, I just wanted to say, you and Lewis County Sheriff Rob Snaza ended up sending out a press release. Got a lot of good press. Are other prosecutors and sheriffs jumping on board? Do they share your concerns?
Obviously, when you have 39 different prosecutors, 39 different sheriffs, there's going to be a wide range of views. I will say kind of the overwhelming conversation yesterday was concern for this, especially when we look at what nonviolent is in the legal field. When you think nonviolent, a lot of people are going to think, oh, it's just low-level drug offenders. Well, that's true. That is nonviolent. But also in nonviolent are assault in the third degree. So we hear everybody praising first responders and doctors and nurses and the emergency room workers. I would say 90%, if not higher, of the assault threes that we get are assaults on our first responders and our doctors and nurses. That's why it's an assault 3. You also have the assault 4 domestic violence repeat offender. So you have domestic issues in there. You have child molestations, 2 and 3, I believe, at least 3. And then you have some rapes that are in there as well. And so really no one in the community is going to consider a rape, a child molest, an assault, a vehicular assault. They're not going to consider those nonviolent offenses because to the layperson and even to a lot of attorneys, it just doesn't make sense to call that nonviolent.
Right. But it is nonviolent according to the governor in his release because nonviolent encompasses all of those things.
Yes, that's true.
And that's the big concern. A lot of folks and I've been following it on social media and even in the press, and it's shocking the press is not actually asking these questions. But you have to ask these questions. Who are the people who are going to be released? And when we're talking about nonviolent, do you want a child molester released? That's a huge deal. Do you want somebody who committed custodial assault released? No. You don't. And I don't think the folks are asking the right questions right now. But you could be. Give me a call, 360-330-5352. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Good morning, both of you gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would love to know, Mr. Myers, what if these people around the state that are so progressive and want to do this humanitarian thing, and the same with illegal aliens, what if everyone who supported, of course, starting with the governor's family, signed a certificate of responsibility agreeing to take these prisoners, one per family or one per person, into their home and help them adjust and support them and assume full responsibility for their behavior?
All right, good question. So let's stick them with the Inslee family.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of folks think that we should have certain types of programs, but then when it comes time to actually implement those programs, we're like, oh no, not here,
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
not in my backyard. And so, you know, that is a very, very interesting question. And I'm not saying that there aren't people that shouldn't be getting out, but we have to be very intentional about those that get out. You know, we've let people out in Lewis County, but what we did is we looked at the case. We looked at how quickly they were scheduled to be released, what their medical condition was, and what their history was. And then we had a conference with the jail, the defense attorney, and then we went to the judge. And so you had all the parties that were involved in this. And in the cases, I wouldn't consider one that had a victim, but, you know, in the cases that we dealt with, everybody was involved. It's not just the swipe of a pen from one person that says, boom, you're out. And that's what's concerning to me. You know, a system is responsible for putting the person in prison aside from their own actions, obviously. So why not let the system address the situation?
And an exit strategy. I mean, once you release that person from the system in a traditional setting, non-crisis, there's measures you can take to make sure that recidivism is lower or that they get the treatment they need outside. The concern here is that you're allowing inmates to dictate criminal justice reform.
Right, exactly. And that's, you know, the programs that are in place in the Department of Corrections, they a lot of times do not start the moment you get to the Department of Corrections, because if you finish a program a long time before you're out, you don't have the tools when you're released to implement those strategies that you've learned. So they tend to wait till you're closer to your release date. So my question is, are we short shifting some of those reforms or some of those treatment options? And what do we have in place? You know, if they're going to be released to the street, now you're putting them with the homeless population, who is already a vulnerable group of people. And we've seen it up north where we have COVID going through homeless camps. And, you know, that's my concern. If we're going to release people, let's make sure it's the right people. Let's make sure it's under the right circumstances. And then, you know, one of the things, I also wrote a letter to the governor that said, hey, in my experience, a lot of these folks say that they're involved in the construction industry. Now might be a great time to lift the ban on construction.
Right.
So these folks might be able to get a job when they get out and give them a better chance at success.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother show.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that you're going to release inmates and criminals into the community, yet residential construction is still non-essential. And what are they going to do when they get out of here?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense on policy reasons. And again, I think the real concern is you have the governor with this knee-jerk reaction because there's birds chirping in his ear, but you're allowing inmates to threaten to take hostages, and that's what's dictating criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform can't be done this way.
No.
Not at a time of crisis and not that knee-jerk reaction. So we'll take a few more calls. If you want to join the conversation, share your opinion, 360-330-5352. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning.
So there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on, and I think I've seen it all when they block being able to buy garden seeds, but they keep the pot stores and liquor stores and the fast food joints open. But I think I see it all yesterday when Donald Trump is claiming, you know, basically hierarchy power over all the governors who decide when the nation gets back open, a bunch of conservatives defending him, and liberals quoting the Constitution saying that he doesn't have the right to do that. I think we've tipped over the scales. My understanding is that the power structure goes from the state to the federal level, and that without executive order or martial law, the president does not have the authority, as he claims, to make the final decision on that. Can you guys talk on that a little bit, what the president's powers actually are based on the Constitution, based on what lawful authority he has and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jonathan? I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. I was reading a lot of articles and wondering the same thing. All the conservatives went liberal, and all the liberals went conservative.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those that I was thinking last night. Good gosh, I have to bust out my first year constitutional law book to try to sort this one out.
And just remember, it is Be Kind to Lawyers Day.
It is. And so, you know, I was taken aback when he made the comment, because if you kind of reverse engineer this, if the governors don't have the ability to lift a ban, that means they don't have the ability to put a ban in place.
Right.
And so I think Governor Inslee, personally, I think Governor Inslee did have the power to do the Stay Home, Stay Healthy program. I'm not saying I 100% agree with it. I think President Trump also has the ability to put in such restrictions. However, his authority is independent of the governor's. So he can't say, state of Washington residents, you can now ignore the governor's order. That's a governor order that's under the state law, under the state constitution. That's separate from what the president can do under federal law and the federal constitution.
Now, of course, the president would have the authority under interstate commerce and airports, some federal regulations. I mean, on that side of, in terms of travel, the president would have some authority to make sure that those are continue to be shut down. But I would agree, if you're saying if President Trump today said residential construction in the state of Washington is now essential, I don't think it would hold at this point.
Right, and we've gone through the analysis with the Second Amendment and gun stores. You know, that's an analysis that my office did early on, because I was concerned that gun stores are not considered an essential service, especially when you have Walmart, which continues to operate, and then you have the local retailers which can't. And that, to me, I don't think is necessarily fair. But I do think that the governor does have some authority. But remember, the federal government also has the power of the purse strings. Mm-hmm. That's how we all got a universal drinking age of 21. Federal government said, you're right, we can't tell you what the drinking age is, but we can tell you that we'll only give money for your highways if the drinking age is 21.
Right.
And lo and behold, it's a great idea. So they do have that power.
Yeah. All right. You're listening. Let's talk about it. AM1470. If you got a question, an opinion, you want to share it, give us a call, 360-330-5352. And it is true, folks, if you just tuned in, it is National Be Kind to Lawyers Day. And Jonathan and I are both lawyers, so be nice when you call in. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Yeah, morning.
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 I listened to that lady the other day that worked in the prison system.
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the caller from earlier in the week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And she said something that I really didn't understand. She said that it costs us $40,000 a year to keep prisoners in there. What my question would be is, the ones that are going to be let out, they have to be tracked, right? They should be tracked anyway.
They can be. I mean, there's ways to track them. I mean, that in and of itself costs money, though, too. So.
Okay, so why don't they take, say, like $13,000 a year from each, the prisoner, put them on HUD, get them into a place where they can be tracked, and then try to get them to work, mm-hmm. and then eventually, in time, the government could be completely out of their lives by working. You see what I mean?
I do. I mean, yeah. Good call. Thanks. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a lot of programs for prisoners while they're in and while they're getting out, but realize that a lot of crimes are not subject to community custody or any type of supervision. A lot of folks are just released. So, for instance, burglary, that's one of those crimes where you just get out and you don't have a whole lot of oversight on what you do. And so I am for some type of reform of the community custody system, because I do think that when people get out, you're going from 0 freedom to 100% freedom. And for a lot of people, that could be hard to adjust. Think of what we're going through right now with COVID. And I'm not saying it's the equivalent of being in prison, but it's going to be a hard time adjusting when we go back to quote unquote normal. And, the same is going to be held true for prisoners. You have a completely different life when you get out of prison. And so I think some type of transition and some type of supervision to help them with that is very reasonable. And in addition, it also helps protect the community. The numbers prove that community custody does help with lower recidivism.
Yeah, which is what's the rate? 30%?
It's depending on the type of crime, somewhere around 30%. Yes.
Yeah, and recidivism meaning that they will commit another crime after release.
Well, that's an interesting thing. The way the state of Washington defines recidivism as a new felony conviction. In my opinion, any criminal justice participation should be considered recidivism, because the goal isn't that you commit less serious crimes.
You're right.
The goal is don't commit crimes, right?
I mean, what's a few misdemeanors among friends? I mean, we shouldn't really count those, right?
Right.
All right. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hey, Peter.
Yes.
I think one of the things that we're missing in this whole thing, and it's just a product of our society right now, we've got such a critical news media. Everyone's critical of everything, every politician. And we've created such a fear that we feel like we've got to do something where everybody's single problem, every problem they have is resolved, and the government has to do it. And we need to come up to the point where we have politicians that have enough courage to look people in the eye and say, hey, I'm not going to solve everybody's problem. I'm not going to educate every child because it's impossible. I'm not going to solve everyone's hunger issue because we can't. You know, we can try and we can have programs and we can do the best we can, but at the same time, we have to look at diminishing returns and the fact that there's just some things we're not going to solve as a government, as a people, as anybody else. There's people that are going to fall through the cracks.
Yeah. I mean, good call. Appreciate the call. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea that we're here to provide opportunity, but we can lead you to water, but we can't make you drink. I mean, I do believe that government should provide opportunity for success. That doesn't guarantee success.
Absolutely. I mean, success is earned, not given. And you know, you take a look at some of the most successful people, even Bill Gates, and some people will say, well, you know, his upbringing made that possible. Someone still had to teach him how to turn on a computer. You know, I mean, he had to do that for himself. Was he given some opportunities because of his background? Absolutely. But at the same time, he made the most of those opportunities. So I agree 100%. The government needs to be able to make sure that the opportunity is available. We cannot guarantee that you're going to make the most of that opportunity. That's just something that we can't do. And, you know, I coach sports as well, and that's kind of goes back to my everybody gets a trophy problem that I have. And so, you know, we have to make sure that people understand the opportunities that they're given and the value of those, and therefore they need to make the best of it.
Yeah, totally agree. You're listening. Let's talk about AM1470. So, Jonathan, any places you've gone out, gotten takeout? Any of your favorites
tons.
during this?
Yeah. We've been over to McFiler's. We've been to Sweet Inspiration, Once Upon a Time. We've been to Indian food down in Centralia. You know, obviously Lewis County Coffee Company. A bunch of different places. We try to eat out more than we normally do. So we're probably eating out 2 or 3 times a week, and then as an office, we try to order in about once a week, just so that we can help support those local businesses who are vital to the success of Lewis County.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I do on this show is every day I'm highlighting different organizations or businesses. So Lales Landscaping and Stone Supply on West Reynolds Road in Centralia. They have drive-up service, Lales Landscape and Stone Supply Company. It's in Centralia, trusted source for landscape supplies. Everybody's doing indoor and outdoor renovations. Everyone's getting their gardening done. So this is a great company. They stand by everything they sell. They guarantee you'll only receive quality supplies and fast, efficient service. Give them a call, 360-807-2018 to speak with their knowledgeable members. Or you can go to lalessupply.com, and Lales is Laels supply.com. I'm going to take a quick break for our sponsors. I'll be back with your calls. If you've got a comment, an opinion, share it. 360-330-5352. We'll be back in a moment.
Clearing land is not a DIY project. There's so much that goes into doing it the right way, so it's best to hire a professional company like Double Duty Land Management. Brush clearing, land clearing, slash burning, site preparation, demolition, and excavation. They do whatever it takes to make sure your land is cleared the right way. They'll also give you a free estimate of the cost of the entire project. Double Duty Land Management would also like to invite you to like them on Facebook and give you another reminder not to text and drive.
I'm Larry Weaver at Dream Weavers Real Estate. During this business and employment downtime, it might be a good time to contemplate your real estate dreams. Could be a good time to prepare and stage your home for sale, or a great time to phone a lender and get pre-approved. We are taking calls and happy to discuss real estate values and give real estate lender recommendations. This turmoil will soon be over, and a great time to think real estate. Buying or selling real estate? I'm taking your calls at Dream Weavers Real Estate. 360-273-3333.
KELA.
Gotta have it in the morning. Streaming.
Listen online.
Let's talk about it.
All right, welcome back to Let's Talk About It, AM1470, KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno, and happy, what was it? Happy Be Kind to Your Lawyers Day?
Yes. Yeah.
So-
And that's, I mean, that should be every day. That's what I tell my wife anyway.
That's right. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for taking my call. I've got two attorneys on the line, so I thought I would ask a question.
Sure.
How is it that this order is allowed to go past 30 days without the legislature becoming involved?
Well, isn't that, and Jonathan, isn't that the difference between whether or not the order is single law specific or generally? I think that's where that delineating line is.
Yeah, and I would agree. You know, and again, this is something that I'm not saying I agree with 100%, but you know, the governor has a lot of power when it comes to emergency type situations, simply because we don't know what the future holds, and so that's kind of I don't want to say a protection, but a feature that's built in, is that they can take these types of actions. And I think that the governor has, I think the actions that he has taken are lawful. Not that I agree with him 100%.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. And that's a good question and good call, because, you know, one of the things that we've talked about on the show, and I've had a lot of calls on, is constitutionally balancing this stay-home order and whether or not it protects enough rights. First Amendment, religious exercise, there's a lot of real, and Second Amendment, for instance, a lot of questions on whether or not the governor is actually balancing our constitutional rights. Because, and it's okay to ask, and I've said this before, I don't think it's okay to attack our leadership in crisis just to score political points. But that doesn't mean you can't ask the questions on whether they're doing the right thing and whether or not there should be adjustments. Residential construction is one that will continue to baffle me now and after the stay-home order.
Oh, yeah, and you know, that's just something I don't understand, because we can't build a house so we can house a family, but we can continue work on Key Arena. You know, I mean, I just don't understand. Now, Florida, when they shut everything down, they said, we're shutting down construction for most things except for roads. We're going to ramp that up. Well, there's no one on the highway. A great time to do that. So I think you do have to have critical conversations. And you're right. We shouldn't take just jabs because we can. But I think those tough questions need to be asked. More importantly, I think those tough questions need to be, A, anticipated by those in charge, and B, answered.
Recreational fishing.
Yeah, I don't
my
get
clam
that either.
digs. Canceled my last clam dig.
Yeah, I mean, A, recreational fishing, you can actually very easily do social distancing there. B, people are also eating the fish, so you're feeding yourself. Same with clam digs. I mean, the only time I'm more than 6 feet or closer than 6 feet away or closer than 6 feet to somebody when I'm clam digging is when I'm with my family. Right. Well, I'm closer than 6 feet in my home anyway. So, you know, go out, get some fresh air. If I can go for a walk, why can't I dig a clam?
Yeah, it's been kind of an interesting dynamic. We'll take a last call. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you so much, you dear guys, for being mayor. So good to hear your voices. I just want to say, from an ancient one in my 90s, you guys have never been through this before. You've never seen the orphan trains going out of New York. You've never had to go to the county dump or the local dump to find your clothes to wear to school in a year. We made it. I'm still alive. I've had a wonderful life. You guys are all going to make it too, regardless of the president or the governor. You're going to do it.
Thank you. Those are great words, and I appreciate your call, and I always appreciate you listening. She's awesome. She always makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's that ray of hope that we all need, especially during these tough times, right?
Yep. All right, Jonathan, I appreciate you coming on the show. My special guest today was Jonathan Meyer, Lewis County Prosecuting Attorney. You're listening to Let's Talk About It every weekday morning, 8:30 to 9 here on KLA. And tomorrow, I've got a really cool thing. I've got the Washington State Farm Bureau is going to come in. We're going to talk about farming, agriculture. We're going to talk about COVID-19, how this economy and the economic crisis has impacted farming, and what they're going to do and what they're hoping to do after this is all over to make sure you eat well and keep those nutritional meals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember to go out and support those local businesses when you can.
Do it. All right. Thanks for listening. Up next, Fox News Report, then Rush Limbaugh. Thanks for listening. Let's talk about it. Stay good. Stay healthy.